Reports of gator men date back to the mid-1700s and have emerged from nearly every large swampland in the American Southeast, and even as far north as New York and New Jersey. Described as being approximately 5 feet long with a human-sized torso, which tapers off into a long, muscular tail and stubby gator-like legs. The beast appears to bridge the gap between mammal and reptile. Witnesses have described the Gator Man as covered with a coat of greenish scales with webbed toes and fingers, with a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. Interestingly, the creature seems to have the clear ability to reason based on its tendency to travel in small packs and have a primitive language comprised of grunts and howls. Most early sightings took place in the mid-1700s in the Florida Everglades. Most witnesses said the Gator Man stood at 6 feet tall with a scaly, muscular body, large claws, and a long, powerful tail. Some people said the Gator Man can use objects like sticks and stones. During the summer of 1973, the residents of New Jersey's Newton-Lafayette area were plagued by what eyewitnesses described as a large humanoid alligator. In 1977, New York City conservation naturalist Alfred Holstruck reported that the state's southern tier was the home of a scaled man-like creature which appears at dusk from the red algae-infested waters to forage among the fern and moss-covered uplands. Although this is the only official comment in regards to the New Jersey Gator Man, the simple fact that a city official publicly acknowledged the creature's existence says something for its credibility.
The Goat Man is a humanoid cryptid most commonly associated with Louisiana, Maryland, and Texas. It is described as a 7-foot-tall hybrid creature, part man and part goat. Urban legends tell of it killing young couples in parked cars or scouring neighborhoods, killing family pets. There are also tales of it breaking into people's houses and assaulting its victims. Some say he was once an ordinary man who kept goats and went insane after teenagers killed his flock, driving him to seek revenge against any youngster. The Pope Lick Monster is a legendary part man, part goat creature reported to live underneath the Norfolk Southern Railroad trestle over Floyd's Fork Creek in the Fisherville area of Louisville, Kentucky. In most accounts, the Pope Lick Monster appears as a human-goat hybrid with the grotesquely deformed body of a man. It has powerful fur-covered goat legs, an alabaster-skinned face with an aquiline nose and wide-set eyes. Short, sharp horns protrude from the forehead, nestled in long, greasy hair that matches the color of the fur on the legs. Perhaps the most thrilling version traces the origin of Goat Man to the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center, a sprawling USDA facility anchored by a large brick building adorned with white columns. A scientist is conducting experiments on goats when something goes horribly wrong, turning him into a bloodthirsty, axe-wielding half-man, half-goat beast, known as the Maryland Goat Man.
Proctor Valley monster stories go back to the 1960s, likely even earlier. One version involves 2 teens who get a flat tire while driving through Proctor Valley late at night. They pull to the side of the road underneath a tree. The boyfriend gets out to look at the damage. His girlfriend locks the doors, and suddenly she hears a scraping on the roof of the car. When cops eventually rescue her, she learns that the scraping sound was the guy's fingernails. He's hanging by his feet from a tree branch. There are big, animal-like footprints around the car. There is debate surrounding the true appearance of the beast. One person claims to have seen a huge flying monster. In the 1970s, a local radio DJ organized a nighttime monster hunt. He gathered thousands of teens in the area and had later reported that they had seen something like a strangely built bovine creature. A psychiatrist who once lived in Alpine claimed to have seen a large creature in the hills near his home. The doctor has tried to stay out of the public eye, saying he wants to write his own book on the events, but third-hand accounts say he described a 6 or 7 foot tall hairy creature accompanied by 2 similar animals. He made a plaster cast of a footprint 16 inches long and 8 inches wide. He also relayed many strange happenings and sounds around his home. Park rangers and other investigators could never confirm the sightings, but plenty of campers, area residents, and even a sheriff's deputy claimed to have seen some large, hairy thing trumping the hills of Alpine. One investigator notes that the nearby Viejes Indians have tell legend of a similar creature that guards its burial grounds.
The Loveland frogmen are reportedly bipedal frogs that have been seen roaming around Claremont County, Ohio. These amphibious aberrations have shocked and horrified businessmen, farmers, and police officers, and remain one of the most intriguing cryptozoological mysteries in the United States. The story begins in May of 1955 on a lonesome road that ran along the Miami River in Claremont County, just on the outskirts of Loveland. A businessman named Robert Honeycutt witnessed 3 bipedal amphibious entities congregating by the side of the road. The man pulled his car to the curb to watch these creatures for around 3 minutes. He noticed that these strange creatures stood between 3 and 4 feet tall, were covered with gray leathery skin, and had webbed hands and feet. Their most distinguishing characteristic was their distinctly frog-like heads, which the man claimed bore deep wrinkles where hair would normally grow on a human. Just as Robert was about to flee, one of the creatures suddenly held what looked like a wand above its head. He claimed that sparks spewed out of the end of the wand. Robert then made a speedy getaway. On March 3, 1972, nearly 17 years after the first report, an anonymous police officer was driving along Riverside Road heading towards Loveland when he spotted something unusual. He was driving slowly on the icy road when he saw what looked like a dog by the curb. The animal darted in front of the cruiser, forcing the officer to slam on the brakes in order to avoid colliding with it. Once the police cruiser came to a halt, its headlights fell upon the animal. In a span of seconds, what the officer thought was a dog sprang up and revealed itself as a frog-like creature on 2 legs. It stared back at the policeman, then scrambled over the guardrail and scurried down a nearby embankment, finally disappearing into the Ohio River. The officer in question described the creature as being 3 to 4 feet tall and weighing somewhere around 50 to 75 pounds. He also claimed that its skin had a leathery texture, and that the animal's features resembled those of a frog or lizard. Another officer investigated the scene later that evening. He saw no sign of the creature, but reported that there were distinct scratch marks on the guardrail the beast had vaulted over.
Mantis Man is a humanoid insect creature that is being reported in Hackettstown, New Jersey, near the Musconetcong River. The creature was described as standing about 7 feet tall, having mandibles and large, intense black eyes. One observer described the creature as fading as it moved up the riverbank, where it was spotted, leading to speculation that perhaps the beast was using camouflage to blend into its surroundings. A second observer reported hearing a humming and feeling tingling sensations, and seeing the mantis man spread its wings when spotted by him in a threatening manner. It also seemingly vanished as if moving into a fog. A report from a man who only wishes to be known as Mr. Strickler saw the mantis man in a riverbank. I saw something strange a few weeks ago on the Musconetcong River near my home here in Hackettstown, New Jersey. I was driving home from the drugstore on Newburgh Road. As I drove near the bridge over the river, I noticed to my left what I thought was a fisherman standing in the river just off the south bank. I slowed the car and looked closer. It wasn't a person, and it was almost transparent with a weird shape. It moved slowly towards the bank and into the trees. I drove further, so I could see it coming out of the trees. That's the last I saw of it. It was tall, 8 feet or so, and had long, thin arms hanging off of it. The color was a pale brown, but I could almost see through it. The head was small compared to the body. It was sunny that day, so I thought it may be glare from the water. But after I thought back, I realized I wasn't seeing a mirage or glare.
The octosquatch is a bizarre cryptid that was originally observed near the Basque Mountains in the summer of 1961. Archimedes Sanchez, a truck driver, and his anonymous riding partner were approaching Puerto de Barazar to unload their goods and call it a night, when suddenly their high beams illuminated something on the opposite side of the road. Sanchez slammed on the brakes, and he and his co-worker stared in shock at what they were seeing. Sanchez would later describe it as a 4-foot-tall hairy octopus with a shaggy coat of rust-colored hair. The beast quickly covered its glowing eyes with one of 4 tentacles, but didn't move as it stood in the truck's headlights. Neither the truckers or the creature moved for several minutes. Sanchez's fear got the better of him, and he ordered his comrade to attack the monster with a jackhammer they had. He refused. Sanchez then decided to make a move. He threw the truck into reverse and drove straight towards the beast, stopping only a few feet in front of it. Sanchez repeated this several times but never left the truck. They had reached a stalemate. Neither man was willing to leave the vehicle, and the strange being was either unable or unwilling to escape. It was near midnight, and the two men concluded there was nothing more they could do. They finished their run and left, but they will never forget their encounter with the Octosquatch.
The Rat-Man of Southend is a local legend in the town of Southend-on-Sea, Essex. The most common story of the Rat-Man involves an old man who used the underpass as shelter from the rain. The story goes that he was elderly and could hardly walk. One night a group of miscreants beat him half to death and stole his only blanket. Dying from his injuries and the biting cold of the night, he succumbed to hypothermia, his stiffening corpse nibbled and gnawed on by the numerous rodents living down there. Soon after, locals reported eerie noises, primarily a high-pitched squealing and the sound of nails dragging along the walls. Another version of the tale says that the mayor of the town was a known adulterer and was eventually cursed for his continued infidelity by spawning a truly grotesque child, a baby with the elongated snout and worm-like tail of a rat. The child grew and developed a taste for flesh. Legend has it that the mayor had the underpass constructed with a concealed entrance to a chamber within which his monstrous progeny might hide, only to come out at night to hunt in order to satisfy its carnivorous hunger.